when Jesus was in the garden and when he was sweating blood and he was pleading to God, let this pain and let this suffering, let this burden pass over me.
All right.
At the end of that, he said, but thy will be done. Submitting himself to God's authority.
Amen.
Putting God's authority over his own.
Come on.
So, I like this part. So, what authority means, or authority originates in Latin, which translates to originator, which means the creator or the initiator of something.
All right.
And God is the greatest creator or initiator.
Yes, he is. Amen.
Yeah, so that means God has the authority over every kingdom and man.
All right.
And so when Satan or the devil tried to tempt God, saying you can have all the kingdoms of this world, he did not have the authority to do so.
That's good.
When the devil tries to manipulate you and sway you off your walk or distract you from God, he does not have the authority to do so, because the only one with the authority to do so is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And since God has the authority and God dwells in us, that means we have that authority.
All right.
So we just have to flip that switch. I wish it was that easy, but we just have to flip that switch, which requires us to strengthen our faith.
All right.
And that brings me to my next point. In order to unlock spiritual authority, it requires you to have spiritual dependability. So I always made fun of motivational speakers for this. In order to achieve, you must believe. Which is true, because in order to achieve your blessing, in order to achieve your authority, you have to believe in God.
Right.
And in order to maintain, you must be subject to God's authority.
All right.
You see, Moses submitted himself to God's authority and led his people to the promised land. Joshua submitted to God's authority and became the leader of the Israelites. David submitted to God's authority and became the king of Israel.
Right.
Solomon submitted to God's authority and became the wisest man to ever live. Peter submitted to God's authority and became the leader of the church. Jesus submitted to God's authority and became the savior of our sins.
All right.
You see, God gives, I don't want to say gives, he blesses people with his authority. Throughout the Bible, you see that in Matthew 10, 6 and 8. But go rather to the lost sheep, the house of Israel. Heal the sick, cleanse the leper, raise the dead. Cast out the demon. Freely you have received, freely give. See, Jesus said, go heal that man. Go cleanse that woman. Go raise them from the dead. And this is my favorite part, because you know that demon that's been in your household. You know that demon that's been in that marriage. You know that demon that's been in your family for generations. You know that demon that is holding you down because he knows your potential that you have in Christ.
Yes.
God can give you the authority to cast that demon out.
Right.
Preach it.
Just as God can give you that authority, he can also take it away just like that. Well, you guys want to sit down as you can. I would feel weird just moving in front of you guys. Just for a little bit. I don't have much time on me. So, just as God gives you the authority, you can take it away like that. And we see that in 1 Samuel 15. And I'm going to quickly paraphrase this. God gives the kingdom of Israel to Saul. And he tells Saul, gives a direct order to Saul saying, go to Amalek. I'm not exactly 100% sure that's how you pronounce it, but Amalek. Go to the Amalekites. Destroy it all. So what Saul did was half obedience, and he went. He destroyed everything, but he said, you know what God would really like? He would really like that ox right there. That's the best ox I've ever seen. He would really like that sheep right there. That's a nice sheep. He would really like that lamb. So you know what? Let's take him back to our land. Let's sacrifice him to God. But you know what? Then he seen a God, which is the king of the Amalekites. He seen a God, and he was like, you know what? You're the king of the Amalekites, so I'm going to spare you. And it's funny because your name literally means I will overcome. And so he overcame that death that Saul was supposed to give to him, but he took him back. And so that very same day, God said, you're no longer anointed. I am no longer with you. You are no longer the king of Israel. But you're going to be a placeholder for now, because the process hasn't fully completed with this man over here that I'm raising up to be the king.
Come on.
That I want to complete that process before I put him in authority. And I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but his name is David. So when David was ready, God took Saul's entire bloodline, because you pass your kingdom to your heirs. Took that entire bloodline, got rid of him, and then placed David at the throne. His authority, the one who he wanted in authority.
That's good.
And so, Saul didn't understand that sacrifice didn't come over obedience.
That's right.
He didn't understand that by not being submissive to God's will completely, that he rebelled against him. And we see that throughout the Bible. Man unwilling to follow, even angels unwilling to follow, because God gave Lucifer authority. But Lucifer rebelled and was cast into hell. God gave Adam authority. But Adam rebelled and was kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And because of those two people, or angel, 1/3 of heaven, 1/3 of the angels was cast into hell with Lucifer. Because of that man, Adam, sin came into the world and is still affecting us today.
Come on.
So, what I'm saying here is no, wait. Let me backtrack. What God is trying to say here, by one man's disobedience, many were made sinners. But by one man's obedience, many will be made righteous. So what God did, he sent his son to save us from our sins. God sent his son to save us from ourselves. That's who you, righteous. So he gathered the dream team over here. Basketball reference. He gathered the dream team. But he wasn't just okay with being the GM. He said, I'm the whole authority, so I'm going to be the coach too. And he decided to draw up a play. And he seen that man with that sickness locking up that man's life. He said, go play some offense, heal that man. He seen that demon attacking that man. He said, go play some defense on that man's soul. So, what I'm trying to tell you guys is be submissive to God's word. Be subject to what he's saying, because that's when your blessings will rain down, but thy will be done. That's when his authority will reach out to you, but thy will be done. That's when his grace and his mercy will fall upon you, but thy will be done. And when we fully submit ourselves to God's authority and his will, that's when his favor will be upon us. And so I'm going to close with this. I know you probably heard this about 1,000 times, but if we're the body and God's the head, and trying to walk without our body, I don't know if you can do that, but I can't do that. And I'm kind of lost without my head. And I don't know about you, but I need my brain to know where I'm going. I don't know about you, but I need my eyes to see what's in front of me. I don't know about you, but I need my ears to hear God's word. I don't know about you, but I need my mouth to sing praises to God.
Amen.
And so, metaphorically and literally, you can only live temporary for about 30 seconds. Literally. Metaphorically, you got 120 years max. And after that, when judgment comes, and the last two things God says to you, or Jesus says to you, is, who are you? You don't even know me. Or they could be the best thing, the best day of your life, and say, welcome, my child. I love you. And so I'm pleading to you, just be submissive to his will and walk in accordance to his authority. Thank you, church.